Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it. And thank you to the questioners in the audience. We're going to move on.
And I still wish I was there. Somebody was addressed.
Well, we'll see you next year, Doc. Thank you. Wonderful. It is my pleasure to next introduce our final keynote of the day, Katherine Druckman. Katherine is an open source evangelist for Intel, who brings together her deep enthusiasm for software security and emerging AI technologies, brings together her deep enthusiasm for software security and emerging AI technologies. She chairs the OPEA Security Working Group, serves as co-chair for Open SSF Marketing Advisory Council, and contributes to community building and developer relations. A longtime advocate, developer, and podcaster in the open source space, she currently hosts Open at Intel and co-hosts Floss Weekly and Reality 2.0. Adding to her extensive experience from over a decade at the Linux Journal, she used to work with Doc. Please join me in welcoming Katherine Druckman for her talk, The Freedom to Create OS Frameworks as the Foundation of Personal AI.
Hi, so first, I have to say, before I get into all these lovely slides that we'll look at in a minute, how excited I am to follow Doc Searles. We've been co-conspirators on so many things in the last, I don't know how many years. I was at Linux Journal alongside him for 12 years. We continued our podcast after Linux Journal effectively shut down. I think we're all here at Scale, the Southern California Linux Expo, for a reason. I'm going to kind of make the assumption that we're all open source people, or I hope we are. But open source is really the way that we're going to get to meet the goals that we're talking about. The personalization, the personal AI, not the personalized. So we're gonna talk a little bit. So let's just quickly recap. Not that long ago, we were all dreaming and chomping at the bit about the great economic impact that generative AI was going to bring to us, right? Goldman Sachs predicted it was going to raise GDP, global GDP by 7% over a 10-year. Thank you for that reminder. McKinsey just published a report. The impact on productivity is going to add trillions of dollars. It's all very exciting, right? But let's talk about the whole AI revolution and how we got here. So generative AI development is not new, is it? No. But in the last several years, things have moved pretty rapidly. In 2017, deep learning models were the big leaders. When Google published the transformer architecture, quickly realized how powerful that was going to be for natural language interaction. And we saw this explosion, right, of models and frameworks. But really, what is the cost of all of this? The cost is fragmentation. The cost is everybody's kind of doing their own thing. We're working in silos. We're not necessarily working together. We're not necessarily working on what the best way to do a thing is. Because we all want to come up with our own solution, own the data, own how it works. Again, as we've just seen, innovation in the field of AI is moving rapidly. Everyone from large enterprises to small startups, individuals, developers, incredibly excited to jump in, reap the benefits of generative AI for productivity. Show of hands, who is currently developing generative AI applications? Anyone in the room actually working? Fantastic. I hope that was the case. But with so much excitement, right, comes a few challenges and even hurdles, and I'm going to talk about that. Some of the problems that rise from this kind of rapid innovation and when you're a pioneer in any given technologies. But I think those of us in this room can agree that we're not willing to let our desire for respect for users, for privacy, for individual agency, control over our own data, we're not willing to give that up in the interest of rapid innovation, right? Frankly, I keep waiting for a truly useful AI tool that will do my taxes. I don't want like a cute chat bot asking me questions about my finance. I want something on my computer that just figure it all out. But I don't want anybody else to have that. I want it to be mine for my benefit alone, right? I suspect I'm not the only one, right? I don't think that's too much to ask, right? Keep my information secure and private. But if we don't proactively make the choice to choose the open ecosystem, the open source way, others choose for us. All of the things we've talked about thus far this morning are impacted by this choice that we make to remain open and committing to fostering, contributing to, and participating in open ecosystems, open organizations, and open source. This is how we achieve our goals of avoiding vendor lock-in, right? Supporting and fostering an environment that is set up for innovation, real innovation. Our goal of protecting our data, benefit from, and this is a really important one that often gets overlooked, but benefiting from the wisdom and support of the ecosystem's community. Future-proofing your applications, right? Protecting your ability to stay agile with your development choices. Swap out what's not working. All the way to the trust that Bruce Schneier just talked about, and personal rather than personalized AI that Doc just mentioned. And frankly, it's probably going to be cheaper if we keep it open. If we keep it open. And we maintain our freedom to pick and choose what we want and what we don't. Any model, any data store, any framework. This is how we make AI applications we want and need them to be. So when we're focused on rapid innovation, right, especially in pioneering fields, I love to use the word pioneer because that's what we all are right now. We're at a weird point of inflection. We may be focused on a goal, right, getting out some kind of minimum viable product. I think that's probably where we've all been there. Getting some functionality out the door. But I think what's sometimes lost in that drive is the foresight to apply principles that lead to interoperability and flexibility. In emerging fields where best practices and modular architectures have not yet been established, like where we are kind of right now, that lack of established best practices and standardization slows down development processes. AI development is really kind of like the Wild West. Everyone's reinventing the wheel, to a large extent. So what I would like to see, we would like to see, as in part of the communities that I'm a part of, is establishing community-established standards to kind of smooth and speed up everyone's developer workflows. I think that is part of how we get to making all of these audacious goals that we've talked about so far. And again, it's the open source way. We come together to establish the best way and the vendor-neutral way. So what happens, right, when we get excited and we push these technology boundaries? As much fun as we're having creating this new stuff, we tend to focus on the end goal and getting there by any means necessary. That can mean we're constantly reinventing the wheel, not the open source way. But we are breaking a lot of new ground very quickly, and there are a lot of different options and paths to reach the same goal. Because we have so many options, we may end up like this pile of disorganized Legos, my choice of an image there, without a reproducible way of working. But as a community, again, I think we can do better and benefit from what we're all learning in our individual silos and bringing it together to forge a more standardized path.
It's set up now.
So this is I made this with AI. I'm sure you're shocked for that. So I made that was an AI-generated image. So this represents our current minimal viable product. It works, it maybe even works well. It was probably really fun to build, maybe, hopefully. But it might be tough to modify, it might be tough to expand, it might be tough to maintain. You might have created a monster. But if you had started, we're getting to this project, right? If you had started with something a little bit more solid foundation, maybe you would not have built such an unruly monster. And it wouldn't have the mind of its own. So, with the struggles that organizations and developers face under the pressures of rapid innovation, being mandated to sprinkle a little AI on it, I think in many cases, it might be tempting to take the proprietary path, or any path of least resistance, but we really don't need to. So the good news, the open source community has come together, as we do, right? In this case, under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation that I mentioned earlier, under the LF AI and Data, to work toward the standardization that I think I mentioned that I'm hopeful for and that we all need. an interoperable vendor-neutral platform that helps us tame a bit of that chaos. And that is the open platform for generative AI. So again, as enterprises try to achieve their AI goals, they're looking for simplicity, but so are the rest of us. Simplicity and total cost of ownership savings in their deployment. Being open is the key, I think, to having control over what you do. Better collaboration, right? Starting with a more standardized architecture saves you time and effort down the road. Moving along. Okay, yeah, we're going to start speeding here. So again, I'm from Intel, but this is not an Intel project. We have many, many co-conspirators collaborating on this platform.
None of this is going on Zoom.
But I wanted to quickly go through what is RAG, and I'm going to speed right on through it because I don't have a whole lot of time, and then I want to show you the basics of the architecture and how you can easily build a chat app, for example, using, again, an open platform. So RAG is retrieval augmented generation. Really quick demo. What does that mean, right? If I ask a chatbot who my mom is, it doesn't know, right? It might know a famous person's mom, but it doesn't know mine because it just doesn't have that context. But if there's the cat ear thing. So a model is not smart. A model is just pre-trained with general knowledge. So, but if we provide it with context, it might give us a better answer, right? So, again, speeding through the slide a bit. If you provide context, a chatbot could generate a response based on a novel topic. In this case, somebody's mom. If you tell them, my mom is 60 years old, my mom is whatever, it can tell you, okay, well then it'll tell you the information. And this is RAG in a nutshell. The main goal of RAG is to provide a prompt with enough context so that the LLM can generate an answer based on the information provided. So I want to break down the interaction just a little bit, right? There's a complex series of events leading from that question to that answer in this case. And this is kind of a general outline of it. Think of it as a two-step process. First, you need to pre-process and store your knowledge in a knowledge base. For example, if you ask, who is my mother, the system will search for relevant context to answer the question. To do it, an embedding model converts the text of your question into numerical vectors representing the meaning of the text. And the retriever compares those vectors to the vectors stored in your knowledge base. The vectors are meaningful, and we can compare them to find the most similar documents. Once the system retrieves that relevant information, it can then re-rank the results before adding the context to the prompt and then feeding it into the language model. So we can assume that this is going to be complicated, right? But there are some challenges of RAGs. Many LLMs. How do you choose what model to use? How do you deploy it? What guardrails do you have in place? How do you ensure the accuracy of the results? How does this all even work together, right? So, but if we start with a stable framework, a composable architecture, this is the aim of the OPA project, right? Create this solid foundation on which to build applications. OPA provides a reference architecture. All of those Legos that I showed you before are microservices that can be easily plugged and played and give us this solid foundation. We also have a mega service that works kind of nicely together to interact with the user interface, and that all leads to faster development. I'm going to skip the demo because we don't have time, because this is basically just a chat interaction. So here we see that each separate microservice is, again, designed to work together to serve various functions in this chat Q&A application. This, again, is one reference architecture of 22 as part of the OPA project. But this is just a really great example, right? A chat Q&A bot is something that a lot of organizations, a lot of people are trying to build because there's a lot of great applications, a customer service application, and you need to feed it that additional context. In this case, we have a user interface and the data supplying it, and then the microservices, again, can point to other services and APIs, and then we'll break that down just a tiny bit more. I'm going to skip showing how the embedding microservices works. But here's basically the larger picture of how the microservices interact, how they can communicate with each other. But There is still something missing. This needs to be able for human use, and that is the mega service. This is my favorite slide because it has the animation. The benefit, again, of grouping these microservices in this way provides a communication gateway between the mega service, the group of microservices, and a front-end UI, which then gives you a full application that actual humans can use. You do not expose the individual services to the UI, so it provides communication to the UI and handles communication among the various microservices. So this is just a quick demo of the kind of thing that you can build with the OPA project. This gives you a blueprint to build on top of this set of microservices to create whatever kind of chat Q&A you might need or want. But it's not just limited to that. There's visual Q&A, there's code generation, there's translation, there's a lot of reference examples. But anyway, this is what we're working together to solve. We want to put, again, power and flexibility into the hands of the developers that are working to build these kind of generative AI applications. And I would really love to see some contributions. I would love for all of you here to join us and join me in this. And again, if you don't find what you need in the repo, please work with us to create it. I would love to see pull requests to add different demos, different use cases, different support, different components to support different projects. Again, we want choice. We want whatever vector database you want to use to be supported. And then again, neutrality is the key. So we need that flexibility in building our applications. I'll get to the one last really important thing. There we go. Lots of ways to participate. Please scan this QR code. Please check out the project. Please join us. Build all the things. And build them the way that you want, not somebody else wants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Thanks for bearing with me while I sped through this. Just one final. Sorry, I gotta plug my podcast.
Plug it.
That's where you can find me.